Thank you, Julie, for that. Okay, so Julie gave a nice background on Africa Code Week, and I'm not going to go into much of that again. I'm just going to start where basically myself and my group got involved. So it's me that's standing here in front of you today, but I just want to say up front that this is not my project. I didn't make it work, and I didn't make it happen. It was done by an amazing group of volunteers, people that just came together, very limited resources, very limited experience and knowledge even. We weren't all programmers, we weren't all coders. Actually, most of them had never seen or heard about Scratch before. And that's what makes this so amazing, that we've been able to achieve what we did. And so, who were we? I'm part of the Hope Network, which is a organization that firstly we grant a scholarship to a women in STEM every year, but we also get involved in developing women in STEM as much as we can. And when I saw this project, I thought it really aligns well with our ethos, and I want us to get involved. And luckily the group decided, yes, we would want to get involved with this. We also approached another great NGO that also does amazing work with children in STEM, which is Sakikamva Foundation. And we formed the Hope Sakikamva Africa Code Week Cape Town, which I know is a mouthful, sorry about that. And yeah, so what did we do? There were 7 pillars that we founded our initiative on, and we didn't start off saying this is what we are, but it kind of just evolved into that. And these were principles, so we stuck to it in terms of this is what our values are and this is what we want to happen. So if it doesn't align, then we're not going to do it, or we're going to do it differently. Firstly, it was quality. Whatever we do, we wanted to give a quality product. Whether it was the training, the venues, the method of communication, it had to be great, because we didn't want people to say, oh, you know, we don't want to be involved with those people. They don't, their stuff is junk, or whatever. Next was accessibility. We wanted the training to be accessible. And so we weren't going to say, for example, oh, come with your laptop to this venue and we'll teach how to code, because that would exclude people that do not have a laptop, for example. And also things like, where are our venues? Is it in areas where people find it difficult to get to? Do you need to have a car to get there? Or can you get there just by the way you normally get to school, or take the bus or the train or something? So we wanted it to be accessible. We wanted to reach as many people as possible. Our target was over 1,000, which we knew was very ambitious because we had very little time to prepare for this. And not only, we didn't just want our reach to be in numbers, but also geographically. So we wanted this to stretch as far across Cape Town as what we could make happen. So not just concentrated in certain areas, but really how much of Cape Town can we cover? So we had venues, and I'll speak about the venues later again, but I think we had about 9 venues across Cape Town. We wanted to make an impact. So the people that we train, would it have maximum impact to them? So what this means is somebody that, because Scratch is taught in schools as well, which is a great thing now. But not everybody has access to that. So we wanted to bring it to people that would normally not have had access to that. Somebody whose life it really could change. Somebody who would never have thought of coding as a career, and now it becomes a possibility for them. We were never going to charge for the workshop, so that's an easy one, no cost. Communications, we wanted to make that professional as well. How do we reach out to people? And a lot of these principles tie in together. I mean, that one ties in with that as well. So from first contact, in terms of how do we speak to people, that's why we also had we set up for example, like a dedicated email. We had a dedicated phone number, and it's little things, but it was important to us. And we wanted mostly children and people that we train to have a great user experience. We wanted to wow them so they can think, oh, this is something that I really want to take forward. And that was things like again, the quality of the training. How do we reach out? I know whoever's here today, you must have had some kind of interaction with Quicket, because the events tickets are sold through there. So Quicket has an amazing thing where if your event is free, they don't charge you any service fee. So we use Quicket for people to book our workshops as well. So you go on, you get a ticket, it doesn't cost you anything. To us, it's great as well because we get the details. So if we need it for any reason, then we have it. Like, for example, the one workshop we had to move, and for unforeseen circumstances, and we could just call the person up because there was only one person booked for it. And they were quite happy to move it to another. They were really just happy to hear from us that they got a phone call and that we care enough, because we weren't just going to let them come and say, oh, you know what, we can't have this workshop because something happened. So this is Scratch. Scratch is just, I love it. It is so simple. It can be used by, I mean, the youngest participant we had was 4 years old, although we kind of said the minimum was 8. And then, of course, the 4-year-old just plays around with it. But it is just so user-friendly because it's drag and drop. It's Lego. It works like Lego. It's not Lego. So you have instructions like these. They're all put in different compartments, and they just take the instructions from there and they put it over. And this is kind of a starter code block. This is what we start with. We start with a cat. And if you look at this block of code, it's quite simple, but it's got a lot of the basic concepts in it. It's got a loop, it's got a conditional statement, it's got some instructions, and it's got motion, and it's got some more instructions. So what it does is that and then it's got a background that you can actually also just interact with. So the child gets this cat to move, to start walking. And that is the simplest of things, but that is magical, because that moment is the moment that changes their life. And it's so magical for them and for us, the trainers, because we just love seeing that delight in their eyes. And not just delight in their eyes, but usually it's like a wow moment. They're like, oh, ah, or, you know, some kind of shriek, because they are creating an animation. The stuff that they see on TV, the cartoons, they are creating the most basic form of that. And then, obviously, they become a maker. And from there, I mean, we add more sprites and we make this a little more complicated and add different backgrounds. And then, depending on the level of the class and the size of the class, we have different standalone exercises, and then one of the more advanced ones, which not all the classes would get to, is, for example, the shark game. And this is something okay, so it's a game. So the little fish is trying to run away from the shark. And the background is also animated. You can't see it on here. I didn't want to put videos because that's just asking for trouble in a presentation. So sorry you can't see the animations. So over here, the fish is controlled by the arrow keys. So you're coding each arrow key over there. And the shark is kind of controlled by the fish. So the shark is chasing the fish all the time. So basically you point the shark towards the fish and you make it move in that direction. Then the fish has to sense when it's touching the shark, because when it's touching the shark, then it gets eaten, so it needs to disappear. That's what that code block does. And then in the shark has got to detect when it's on the fish. So when the shark reaches the fish, he's going to open his mouth, eat the fish, close his mouth, and say yummy for 2 seconds. And then you can see it's got the sensing, it's got the if statement, it's got just the whole bunch of stuff in there. And you can even add, we can even add like a scorecard. We don't usually get to that point. But this just shows what you start with and what you can end up with. And this is not of the more complex ones. But I mean, some of the trainers from SAP showed us where they created, for example, a ping pong game or a Pac-Man game, all with Scratch. So the fundamental concepts carry over. And the fundamental concepts is what we are trying to teach them, because the syntax you can always learn afterwards. So this is just probably one of the simplest loops that we'll find in Scratch. It's got an initialization, and it's got some code inside the block. So they have built that. They understand this. A 10-year-old totally understands what they are doing there. So when they get to something like this, when they decide, oh, I want to learn Java, I want to learn C. If you give someone like this, something like this, initially it's quite weird to them. They're like, what is going on here? What is this condition stuff? It's got all these, syntax things that you've got to learn. If you put a comma instead of a semicolon, it's not going to work. And, or they see a code block like this, for example. It's very difficult to see what's going on there if you're new. But if somebody has learned Scratch, they know, they can see, oh, it's a loop. And there's a conditional statement. I know what that is. And that's how it just carries over, and it makes it easier. So all you need to know, or all you need to learn, is the things that are specific to that language. So what are the skills and lessons learned? Because we believe that even though you might not continue coding, there are lessons that you can learn through playing with Scratch. Firstly, logic. You learn how to build things. And learning how to build things and to take a big problem and to break it down into manageable steps to solve is a very important skill to have, just generally in life. Failure is normally discouraged in school. Here we encourage failure. We want you to try things and for it to work. And if it doesn't work, then you try something else. If you never try something that doesn't work, then you're never going to grow. So we actually want you to fail because that's how you're going to learn. And it's an iterative process. So it's a build, test, adjust, and repeat that. Geometry. I don't know a lot of 10-year-olds that actually like maths. But here, you are working with a set of coordinates, with X and Y coordinates. And you interact with it, and it's not boring. So people, they kind of, because they're working with it, they don't even realize that they're doing maths. So when they get to, for example, learning graphs, I'm not sure where in the school curriculum that's taught to them, but it's familiar with them. And it becomes something that's not daunting. And they won't ask their teacher, for example, why do I need to learn this? Because I don't see how I will ever need it in real life. Creativity, the only limit really is your imagination, because there's so much that you can do. And a lot of the kids, even the very young ones, they, especially if it's a bigger class, when the instructor can't really go to the pace of everybody in the class, they end up doing their own thing. They try things, they learn, they do things that's outside the scope of the class, and that's great. We had one boy that I know of in one of our classes that was, and one of the trainers told me about it afterwards, but, and the only reason that they knew this was because his aunt was with and they told him, but the boy has a learning disability. And the aunt said, she doesn't know how he's going to take this because he really struggles to learn at school. And they were surprised because this boy didn't have any problems learning because both sides of his brain was engaged. Then I'm just going to go into some insights from participant feedback that we got. We had some feedback forms. Although the sample is quite small, and just only from one venue, we feel that it was quite representative of our entire user group because of the demographics. It was, for example, the gender split was about even, the age as well, and at Maitland High, a lot of the children come from travel by train. So they come from different areas in Cape Town and from different socioeconomic backgrounds as well. So some of the questions we asked them We asked them, how would you rate your level of learning? 1 was I learned nothing, and 5 was I learned a lot. And the vast majority, almost 90% of them, chose 4 or 5, which is exceptional. We asked them after the event, would you continue learning to program? 77.5% said yes. Can somebody tell me from the graph how many said no? But none of them indicated that they would not continue. So 22.5% said that they don't know. And so this was a concern. So we dug deep into that. Why was that percentage so high? We asked them, what will prevent you from learning how to program, learning how to code? And most of them, almost all of them, cited accessibility factors, which was quite a sad thing, and which actually tells us where we need to concentrate our resources. So most of them said it was things like lack of assistance. I don't have anybody to help me. I don't have internet access. And most of them said, I don't have a PC to work on. And none of them, not one said that they lacked the skill. So it wasn't because they thought that they didn't know how, it's because of other factors. And Maitland High actually has a brilliant computer room. It's fully kitted out, but it's not being used because they just don't have the resources. They don't have a teacher that can supervise, for example, the kids even playing on it. They don't have a... We actually even had issues loading the software onto there, but we're not going to go into that. So it's not that it's not there. We just need to make full use of our resources. And then we asked them, what would help you to pursue a career in STEM? And most of them, more than half of them, said run more programs like these. A lot of them said, 18.4% said run more school workshops or run workshops at my school. Some of them said train students at my school, and some of them said train the teachers at my school. And then lastly, I'm going to go into some of the project results, and this was of our project that we had. Over the 9 days of Africa Code Week, we were active on each and every day. It was 2 weekends and the week in between it. So we had 44 public workshops, 6 public venues, and that's where people could book on Quicket, and 3 schools. And the schools, some of the public venues were schools, but these schools are where either we taught, we went there to teach, or we trained a teacher that then in turn taught the children. Our venues were, if I can remember correctly, Lansdowne, Philippi Village, Maitland, South Peninsula, what was the other 2? Mitchell's Plain, and there was another one which I can't recall now. Yeah, and we had one exclusively girls' day, and this was at the Bandwidth Barn in Kailicha, and that was the Friday. And then just some of the partnerships. Julia has mentioned how powerful partnerships are. We partnered with the Mozilla Foundation and UN Women. Mozilla is really, I've worked with them, and they really are very active in advancing the open web, as well as getting girls into technology and coding and initiatives like these. And that is where we actually sourced the girls for this day. It was from the Mozilla girls that are taught here. And UWC Information Systems came on board as well as trainers. They were amazing. They just helped us. They came on board quite late, and they were just ready to help us wherever we needed. And they actually were the trainers for this day, because most of our trainers were working full time. And then the Cape Town Science Centre, they were just like the flagship partner in terms of making this happen. And then the results of our project, we managed to train 1,273 people, mostly children, and 51% of those were girls. we initially making it only for children. We said, this is a kids' workshop. But then all the adults were like, what about us? We also want to learn coding. So then we decided, okay, it's open to everybody. Anybody can come. If you younger than 8 or 10, need an adult with anyway. And the kids ended up teaching the adults. Like, there was one little boy, he was probably about 5 years old in one of my classes, and his dad came with because he was too young and he needed adult supervision. And I would show something and his dad would be struggling and he'd be like, no, Daddy, you must do it like this. And then he'd show him. It was just the cutest thing. And then across Africa, which we can't take credit for, but that was the reach of the entire project, was 426,758. And that was with a target of 150,000. Okay, that's the end of it. That's just some pictures of during the week that we had.